Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Are you tired of seeing an empty wallet and your bank account is empty as well? Well, the reality is many Americans are in dire straits financially, and the sooner that we face up to that and figure out how to have solutions to that, the better prepared we're going to be for the inevitable emergencies that happen in life. Fewer Americans have a savings account, and they're unable and ill-equipped to deal with an emergency situation that requires an expense. If you think about your car breaking down, your furnace needs to be repaired, you have a clog in your plumbing, your child gets sick, or maybe you miss a few days of work and your paycheck is down. These are emergencies that we know inevitably will come to us. We never know when, but those kind of emergency situations happen to everyone, and we need to be financially set and prepared to face those economic emergencies that come to us as individuals. According to Bankrate and their 2025 Emergency Savings Report, 43% of U.S. adults would pay for unexpected emergency expense of $1,000. They would only be able to use a credit card or to borrow money. They don't have $1,000 in an emergency fund. And if you look at these things that happen, lots of times $1,000 is just what things cost. If you need a plumber, if you need an electrician, if your car breaks down, those aren't going to be in the tens of dollars. The hundreds of dollars is more like it, and even up to $1,000. So you need to be prepared and think about what are those expenses and how much could they be, and do you have that much saved up in an emergency situation so that you don't need to pull out your credit card and go into credit card debt. 27% of U.S. adults have no emergency savings. 37% of Americans cannot pay $400 for an emergency. That's crazy to think that 37% of Americans can't even come up with $400. That puts you on the brink of financial disaster, because if something happens, say you miss a paycheck, how are you going to make your rent, your house payment? How are you going to keep the lights on and food on the table? That is very concerning to me, as it should be to most of us. As cost of livings are increasing, reports show that 73% of Americans are saving less money. And the reasons they're saving less money, 68% say they're saving less because of inflation and rising prices. 47% say it's because of high interest rates. 45% said there's a change in their income. Maybe they had to take a pay cut or a lesser job, or their hours were cut, or maybe their jobs were cut and they had to take a different job. These are concerning times, but it's not something that we can't buck up and face and figure out how to get through it, how to make the best of our lives, our everyday lives, so that we can make sure that our future is as prosperous and safe as possible. An alarming 69% of Americans feel they're unprepared to be able to cover living expenses in an emergency. That's over 2/3 of Americans don't know how they could deal with an emergency that would cover their living expenses, that then they don't have their home provided for, their food, their basic utilities, their transportation. That is alarming that 69% of Americans are concerned about that. And so I feel, as a prepper, I want to make sure that I am doing everything I can to try to ensure that I am not in that 69%, that I can pinch my pennies, save some money, prepare for hard times. They come to everyone. We never know when. You may realize that the cost of living has declined some. Prices are still going up. And just in the last few months, the price of my insurance on my home and my cars has been skyrocketing. And it's not just me. I'm sure that that's going on where a lot of you live as well. And maybe if you live in, say, a condo association, maybe your condo fees have gone up exponentially because of all of the increased costs that it costs to keep those kind of organizations running. That even if we think we have prepared, we can't control how much prices go up. We can only control how we react to that and how we choose to spend our money, save our money, and invest our money so that we can weather those bumps in the road when they come along. One thing to do is to prioritize where your money is going. If you're in debt, you need to pay off those debts and get out of, say, credit card debt, because the additional prices involved with credit card debt are the interest. And some credit cards are 29% interest. That is robbing you of your future by spending money on things that you don't need to be spending. You could be saving 30% of what those prices are, what those payments are, by not having credit card debt. You also need to be saving so that you have that emergency fund. Put some money towards that debt, but also put some money towards an emergency so that if something happens, you don't have to pull out that credit card again. You need to have a buffer of cash, but make it a priority to do both of those things. Pay off debt and have some cash on hand. That's how you're going to have a smoother transition when you face challenges. Then you actually need to figure out what are your basic needs. What is the basic do or die budget that you have to have? What's the amount that you must have to provide the basic needs? The actual cost of your rent or your house payment. What are the costs of your utilities? They're rising. You may need to up that budget some, but make sure that you're using those dollars wisely. You need to have food on the table. It doesn't need to be takeout food. It doesn't need to be drive-through dining. You need the basic foods that you can make basic meals and keep your family fed. You also need to provide transportation. You need to get to the store. You need to get your kids to school. You need to, get to work. You need to be able to go to the doctor if you need to. You need basic transportation. And then you need to make sure that you have the insurance that you need, whether it's for your car insurance, your home insurance, renter's insurance, health insurance. These are things we can't live without, even though they seem like they are skyrocketing expenses. If we don't have those budgeted for ourselves, we could be in a disaster if you have a bad accident, something happens to your home, or you become gravely ill. You need to have your insurance in place that it protects you as a safety net against catastrophic expenses. Money aside from that are things that are not needs, they're basic wants. You don't need to have cable TV. You don't need to have fancy features on your cell phone. You don't need a lot of the things that people drive into the mini mart and pick up snacks and drinks. You don't need that. Those are not basic needs that you must have. Those are wants. You don't have to go into, say, Target and fill up a cart and come out. Those aren't things that required to keep your life going. They're not requirements. So make sure that you understand wants versus needs, and you need to cut back on the wants if you don't have your emergency fund and your bills paid off. Can't afford to have those things, and that's just being a grown-up and realizing that you want to have a better future, not only today, tomorrow, but long into the future when things could become harder for us. We need to prepare for that eventuality. Statistics show that 89% of people want to have an emergency fund that's equal to 3 to 6 months of their basic living expenses. Except the reality is most people don't even have $400. So what your goal should be, take it from your reality and make that goal happen. Put away pennies, nickels, dimes, and dollars. Every time you save something out of your budget, you're putting it away for a financially sound future and for your prosperity and an emergency situation that can smooth your life and keep it going. Just like we want prepping supplies, we need an emergency fund. We want every day to go as smoothly as possible, and we can ensure that by preparing for the things that we need in the future, and paid off bills and cash on hand are certainly critical elements of any prepping plan. Once you put aside those emergency funds, put them even in a separate savings account. Don't just leave it in your checking account, because sometimes then we think, oh, I can raid that. I want to get something. And then that money just slips through your fingers and it's gone. If you put it away and tell yourself, this is for emergencies, this is for my future, don't raid it for things that aren't an emergency. Going out to dinner, buying a new outfit, those are not emergencies. I used to tell my kids, if you can wear it or eat it, it isn't a necessity. You have food at home, you have clothes at home, you have basic things already. You do not need more if you can't afford it. Americans are in dire straits. They're falling behind financially, but it doesn't have to be something that is inevitable, that we're spiraling down. We can take control of our life. We can turn that ship around. We can build in our own safety net and prepare to thrive in an uncertain future by preparing our lives in a positive way, that we are getting out of debt, we're saving money, and we're preparing for whatever life throws at us. We're going to be ready to deal with it. Leave it in the comments below. What are some ways you're cutting back on your budget? How are you saving extra money for an uncertain future? And are you feeling better about your own position when you hear about what others are going through? Don't fall into that trap of it all is just dire straits and we'll just spend it for today. Think about tomorrow, because that's what really is going to be important, and we are all looking forward to that. I hope you'll like my video, share it. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.